He shoved me and said, "Sell the house, Dad. I need a Tesla." I didn't fall so much from the blow as from the realization my son would trade our family home for a new toy. The papers were rushed, the car was bought, and I was left as if my memories were merchandise. But my honor was not gone. I gathered witnesses, called a lawyer, and showed the world that the line between a child and a predator can be razor thin. The night after I signed, I sat on the cold kitchen tile where my wife once taught our granddaughter to peel oranges. The pith used to cling to their thumbs. Evelyn would roll each fruit first, laughing when the rind surrendered. Now the house made funeral noises, pipes settling, wood sighing, a twig tapping the window like a knuckle that had forgotten why it came. I am Stephen, 71, a grandfather by blood, a widower by everything else. Tonight I felt like a man who had traded his own past for ink. Evelyn's photo leaned against the sugar jar, the same Sunday smile she wore when she said the house was happiest under rosemary and garlic. She is gone. She is still the weather here. She was Derek's mother by blood. She was the person who made quiet feel full. Derek, my son by blood, used to be a boy who saved worms from hot sidewalks. Somewhere he learned to call wanting need. Today he arrived with urgency already strapped to him, the kind that means the plan is finished and my part is just consent. He moved through my doorway like it belonged to his calendar. He told me to be practical. He said the 4-bedroom was waste on a pension. He promised efficiency, safety, ease. His hand found my chest when I asked to slow down. Old bone does not need much to bruise. Paige, Derek's wife, my daughter-in-law by marriage, stood close enough to arrange the moment. Her concern was curated, tidy, camera-ready. She said it was about family, about stability for Mia, but I could feel the shape of control under the satin. She has a talent for framing. I used to think it was charm. Now I know it is strategy. Mia, their daughter, my granddaughter by blood, smells like lemon blossoms when she has been playing under the tree. She believes memories can be planted. She presses rosemary into soil with 2 small thumbs and expects it to remember her. She is the good center of this house. She is why I kept breathing. Ruth next door is not kin, but she is the kind of neighbor who writes weather in a garden journal and dates things that matter. She saw the shove from her porch. She will not call it a misunderstanding. Hal from church is not kin either, but he is the sort of man who shows up with soup and wrenches and a hand that stays on your shoulder a second longer than needed. He will not let me sink without making noise about it. That evening I was back on the tile, the house exhaling around me. The lemon tree threw its long shadow across the floor like a sundial with no appointment left to keep. I opened the drawer of recipe cards and touched the edges like ribs. I told myself where everyone truly stands. My wife gone but guiding. My son by blood, now a stranger to the memory of who raised him. My daughter-in-law by marriage, loyal to ambition and optics. My granddaughter by blood, the heir to what is worth saving. Neighbors and friends, not family by blood, but truer than most. The escrow officer and the notary, efficient and forgettable, they will sleep fine. I named it all in my head because names anchor things that want to drift. I kept Evelyn's photo beside the sugar jar and listened to the old house hum as if it too were waiting to see whether I would stand. Earlier that afternoon, Derek arrived with Paige in that particular rush he wears when the decision is already finished and my role is to nod. I recognized the scent of it before I saw him. Cologne that costs more than cents, and the faint electricity of a man who thinks he is about to win. He did not knock long. He never does when he has convinced himself he is rescuing me. He filled my doorway like a salesman who knows the angles of my kitchen better than I do. Behind him, Paige hovered half a step back, chin lifted, already measuring the light. Their car idled at the curb, hazard lights blinking in a neat rhythm, and through the windshield I could see the notary waiting with a clipboard, tapping a pen against his thigh. A whole little machine clicked in place on my front lawn. Derek scanned the room with that quick inventory he does. Square footage, appliances, sellable features, and I could almost hear him converting my life into bullet points. He carries a ledger in his head now, a quiet calculator that rounds people down to what they can give him. I remember when he used to count other things, the number of crickets before bedtime, the steps from his bed to ours after a nightmare. Somewhere, the numbers turned. "Dad, be practical," he said. His voice smoothed itself when the notary glanced in through the window, then sharpened when he looked back at me. "You cannot keep a 4-bedroom house on a pension. We will get you into a condo near us. It will be easy. Safer." The words landed like instruction more than concern. Easy meant fast. Safer meant controlled. Near us meant under watch. I could feel him willing me into compliance the way he wills a deal across a table. Eye contact, tempo, a hand gesturing toward the signature line like a magician inviting the volunteer to step inside the box. Paige widened her eyes the way she does when she wants strangers to admire her compassion. "And Mia needs stability," she said. "This is about family." Family for Paige is a word that photographs well. I have seen her practice sympathy in the reflection of my microwave door, smoothing the edges until it sits just right on her face. She is not heartless. She is something trickier, loyal to the version of love that keeps the brand consistent. I used to find that charming. Now it tastes like varnish. Derek moved in closer. My back brushed the doorway to the hall. His hand came up, open-palmed. Not a slap, not quite a push. The correction parents use on children and bosses use on juniors who will not get out of the way. His fingers pressed above my breastbone. A warning, a claim. Old bone does not need much to bruise. Mine bloomed fast, purple like a secret. I thought, for a narrow second, of the day I taught him to ride a bike on this same street. He tipped, and I caught him by the shirt. My hand then said, "I have you." His hand now said, "Move." In the car, beside Paige's perfume and the notary's peppermint breath, I watched Derek's knee bounce like a metronome. He was not nervous. He was rehearsing the finish. I know his tell. When he is about to close, he imagines the caption, the handshake, the relief of money turning from idea to fact. He lives 2 beats ahead of consequence. Paige scrolled through her phone, thumbs a blur, probably making lists of what to film later. The drive up, the keys, the angle where the sunlight makes the hood look like a promise. I felt like luggage. The office was cold in the way places get when they exist to keep people moving. The escrow officer smiled the trained smile of someone who sells calm by the minute. "Sir?" she called me, and then "sweetheart," and slid papers toward me in tidy stacks. Lifeboats is what I thought of, lined up and labeled. It is funny how survival can be arranged to look like choice. The notary stood to my left with a stamp already inked. He smelled faintly of coffee and obligations. He watched the clock more than my hands. He leaned in to point at lines where my initials would go. He had no malice. He had a schedule. I read as quickly as an old man can while a younger man breathes at his back. My name looked strange, repeated so many times. Stephen Hale, as if I were a brand repeating itself down the page. The house's legal description was a paragraph that had nothing to do with lemon blossoms or rosemary, nothing to do with Evelyn's laugh or Mia's grass-stained knees. Derek shifted his weight closer whenever I paused. I felt the memory of his hand at my chest, the place where the bruise was deciding on its shape. "Be practical," he had said. I have been practical my whole life. Practical is how we kept a mortgage paid, how we put shoes on a boy, how we filled a freezer when Evelyn's chemo made her too tired to cook. Practical is not a shove. I could hear the ledger in Derek's head whirring, whipping up numbers he could live with. Sale price minus fees, plus fresh start equals good son. He needed the story of it, too. Responsible child delivers aging father from burden. If he believed that story hard enough, maybe he would not have to hear the other one. The one where a man confuses inheritance with a clearance sale and calls it love. Paige leaned over my shoulder once to point at a line flagged pink. "This just acknowledges you understand the disbursement," she said, soft as a blanket. She smelled like something floral and expensive. I could feel her framing the script even here. Elder care, safety, transparency. She glanced at the notary to make sure he saw her doing it right. I signed. My hand trembled, not from doubt but from the strange sensation that I was erasing myself letter by letter. Each initial took something small and real and turned it into a reference number that belonged to someone else. I looked at Derek's reflection in the office glass, chin set, eyes bright. The focus he gets when the world is finally lining up to his plan. He looked like a man who had convinced himself he was brave for taking on a burden. He did not look at my hands. By the time the pen cooled, the bruise on my forearm had ripened to a dark halo. The escrow officer collected the stacks as if we had all been rescued together. The notary's stamp made a last neat thud, official as a verdict. On the ride back, Derek exhaled the way he does after a win, long and satisfied. He tapped his phone, probably confirming what color was in stock, what trim, which showroom would hand him the keys with a bow. Paige typed faster, a small smile ghosting her mouth, already editing the day into a narrative that would make her look generous and wise. I watched the neighborhood slide by, Ruth's hedge, Hal's dented truck, the lemon tree in my yard leaning over the fence, and tried to find myself in a story where a son believes a car is a measure of care. I could not yet. I only knew the feeling that swelled behind my ribs, the one that would later harden into something useful, the simple, stubborn refusal to let a signature mean the end of a house, a marriage, a name. That evening, a red Tesla slid into their driveway while I watered the rosemary Evelyn planted the year Mia was born. The bush has a way of releasing scent when it is touched, as if it recognizes familiar hands. Derek's laughter carried down the street, the easy, elastic kind he saves for wins. Paige's phone lifted like a periscope, already hunting the angle that would make the paint look like poured light. The car hummed after it stopped, a quiet brag. Mia saw me first. Her wrist flashed in the porch light, the little bracelet she wears, beads strung on elastic, one crooked star she picked because it reminded her of lemon blossoms. She waved with her whole arm. "Grandpa, did you see Daddy's spaceship car?" she called. I waved back and forced a smile for her. The taste of metal pooled under my tongue, the way it does when the body gets ready for a blow it cannot see. She came down the steps in a skip step I know by heart. Knees a little green from earlier grass, shoes untied. Her hair smelled faintly of the lemon tree. For a second, Paige dipped her phone, uncertain if this approach fit the shot. Then she kept filming. Derek leaned his hip against the fender and threw his head back like a man full of sunlight. I crouched. The rosemary brushed my hands, and Evelyn rose in the air between us, uninvited and welcome. Mia thrust her wrist at me, proud. "Look, I added the blue bead. It is for the sky when spaceships go up." I nodded. My hand knew what to do before my mind did. I broke the tiniest sprig and twisted it around the cord near her star. The leaves scratched my fingertips. The scent leaped up, clean and stubborn. "Now it can remember where to land," I said, but mostly I said it to myself. Derek called down the drive without turning. His voice was bright enough to bounce. "Careful, Mia. Do not get dirt on the seats." He always says seats like he is talking about something holy. The word does not mean chair anymore. It means image. Mia did not look back. Her eyes were on me, waiting for the small ritual we have at every hello. Show the wrist, check the charms, add something from the yard. I tied the sprig tighter. She flexed her hand and sniffed, serious. "Smells like Sunday," she said. Evelyn's roast, rosemary, and garlic turned to weather. Paige's voice floated across, polished concern dressed as care. "Mia, honey, we need a picture in the new car. Quick, quick!" I looked at my granddaughter and saw what she was to each of us, and what she was to herself. To Derek, tonight she was scale. Put her smallness next to the machine, and the machine looks grand. To Paige, she was proof that the word family was not just copy. To me, she was the reason the house needed to stand. To herself, she was the girl whose grandfather could weave a plant into a bracelet and make it mean landing. "Spaceships are quiet," she whispered, as if the car might hear. "Do you think Grandma can hear it from the moon?" Evelyn, with flour on her cheek, telling Mia to roll her oranges before peeling. Evelyn pressing cuttings into soil with Mia's thumbs and saying, "Remember, green things look back at you if you are patient." I swallowed and felt the metal flood again. I am not a man who cries in driveways. I am the man who plants something that grows long after. "Grandma hears everything we do right," I said. The sentence surprised me with how much I wanted it to be true. Derek clapped his hands once, sharp and theatrical. "Let us go, superstar," he called up to Mia, the nickname he uses when he needs her to sparkle on cue. He had already rounded the math in his head. Down payment becomes possession. Possession becomes content. Content becomes a story about providing. His grin said he had made the right call under pressure. My yes was filed in his ledger as proof of love. Mia glanced at me. There is a softness to her question face. The eyebrows knit, the mouth tips, a private weather forms. I could feel the choice arrive between us, ride in the red marvel with parents bright as the showroom, or kneel another minute with an old man and a shrub. She looked at the car, back at me, at the car again. She is 6 and does not know yet that the world penalizes pause. "We will have our picture in a minute, sweetheart," Paige chirped, still filming, voice going syrupy for the microphone. "Stand by the door, show the bracelet." "Oh, that is perfect." Mia lifted her wrist like a flag. I saw my sprig there, green against blue beads, the star off center. Paige captured it, satisfied. "Beautiful," she said, meaning the image. I reached into my pocket and found what I had put there out of habit earlier that day. A tiny plastic prize from a cereal box. A yellow ring with a clear dome that clicks open for a secret. Mia and I have a game that uses it. We hide a seed or a pebble and declare it a treasure, then bury it by the lemon tree and mark the spot with 2 small stones. It is a childish game and holy in the way all repetitions are. I clicked the dome. Empty. I lifted it to Mia and tapped it with my thumb. Her eyes lit in a quiet way, the way that signals memory rather than performance. She reached and cupped it in her palm. "For later," I said. "We will hide something that knows how to grow." Derek exhaled impatient sunshine. "Dad, do not fill her head with projects." "We have dinner plans," he said in the tone that calls itself reasonable while closing a door. He did not mean harm. He meant schedule. Paige opened the passenger door with a flourish. "Come on, Mia. Let us show Grandpa how the handles pop out." Mia slid toward the car, looking over her shoulder as if she were leaving a book mid-page. At the door she hesitated, then turned back and sprinted to me with a suddenness that startled even her. She wrapped her arms around my neck and pressed her lemon-scent hair under my chin. It was not long. Children do not linger when applause is waiting. It was enough. "Keep the rosemary," I said into her hair. "It will tell you where you are." She nodded against my collarbone. When she let go, she did it decisively, the way she does when she is trying to be brave. She ran back, climbed in, and Paige chirped her praise. Derek ran a palm across the hood like a man blessing a promise. The car's screens woke in soft blues. The glass reflected a small girl and 2 adults who were very pleased with themselves. I stood with the hose still running, its stream darkening the dirt around Evelyn's plant. The water made the scent stronger. Across the street, Ruth's curtain moved. Hal's truck door creaked as he came home. I felt the house at my back like a patient animal. I thought of the little ring in Mia's fist and the rosemary on her bracelet, and the way she had checked my face before obeying someone else's joy. I felt a thin, humiliating shame. I had failed to guard our legacy. In my actions, I betrayed my family, and my family betrayed me. I'll do everything I can to cleanse our family of greed and corruption. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Something settled. Not anger. Not yet. Something older and steadier. The part of me that held a bike seat until a boy could balance and let go only when the wobble had turned to motion. I would teach balance again, this time with paper and witnesses and the truth spoken in rooms that echo. I would plant a line and not let anyone step over it without feeling the thorns. Derek revved the car for the pleasure of the soundlessness. The neighborhood watched without looking. I shut off the hose, laid the coil in a patient loop, and set my hand on the rosemary as if it were a pulse. The taste of metal faded. The next morning my phone lit up before the kettle boiled. Paige, thank you for understanding. We will reimburse what you need. It is all about the future. Heart emoji. There are silences even phones can hear. Mine sat face up on the table, still as a stone, and somehow the room felt heavier for it. I stared at the message until the words stopped meaning anything and became shapes. Understanding, reimburse, future. Pretty shapes, all of them pointing away from what they had taken. I made coffee because that is what you do when you do not know what to do. Scoop, water, button. The machine shuddered like an old horse, and then did its job. I held the mug and tried to warm my hands back into myself. Shame travels. It sat in my chest, then in my throat, then went down to my stomach and made the coffee taste like tin. I wiped the counter for no reason and caught the edge of something wedged behind the flour canister. A corner of cardstock, grease softened and familiar. I pulled it free. Evelyn's handwriting. Rosemary roast. The paper smelled faintly of lemon oil and old ink, like it had been waiting in a drawer for me to grow up and read it properly. On the back, in those tidy block letters that never once shook, 3 lines I had never seen. Do not let the house be taken by greed. Protect our legacy for Mia. If they forget who raised them, help them remember. I put both hands on the counter and stood there a long time. The first line made my face go hot. The second made my shoulders square. The third was a door swinging open. By noon, the shame slid into something colder and more useful. It did not feel like rage. It felt like a level pulled from a toolbox and set against a crooked frame. This is wrong, it said. Make it straight. I rinsed my mug. I set the recipe in the center of the table like a commandment. I found a yellow pad and a working pen. I wrote a title at the top without thinking. Keep the house. First, witnesses. Not lawyers or words I could not pronounce. People. I called Ruth. 30 years of shared fences and borrowed sugar. She picks up on the second ring for me. I told her what I needed, and she was already there. I wrote it down, she said. Yesterday, 3:14 in the afternoon. He put his hand on you and you turned your face away. I wrote that too. I closed my eyes and saw her garden journal, the one with smudges of dirt on the month of May. I wrote her name on the pad and underlined it. Hal next. He does not have caller ID and always answers like he is expecting bad news. I told him what happened. His silence on the line was a solid thing. I was right there on your porch when he called you too old to understand money, he said. I am not old enough to forget it. Say when I added his name. The page began to look like something I could hold on to. I pulled up the text from page and printed them. The line about reimbursing what I need looked worse in ink. It looked like someone handing you your own wallet and calling it a favor. I circled it. I underlined it. I wrote the date twice. Then the doorbell footage. I never liked that camera. Evelyn said it was nosy. But there was Derek's hand on my chest, plain as day, and there was my small backward step, the flinch I will deny until my last breath. I watched it once. My ears went hot. I watched it again and felt nothing except the click of a puzzle piece sliding into place. I put the clip on a little flash drive Mia once used for school and stuck a label on it with my shaky handwriting. Front door, yesterday. I took photos of the bruise. It had come into its color by then, purple blooming at the edges like a storm map. I put a coin beside it to show the size like I had seen in magazines, then a ruler. I felt foolish and then not foolish at all. I took one with the day's newspaper in frame because Hal once told me that is how they prove time. Second, a professional. I did not want to say lawyer. Lawyers belong to other people's families. Still, I opened the drawer where Evelyn kept the things you might need one day. The spare keys, the stamps, the warranty cards for appliances we no longer owned. A folded flyer I had kept for a reason I could not name until now was tucked in the back. Alvarez and Song. Elder Law. The words sat there plain. I dialed. The receptionist's voice was ordinary. That helped. Ms. Alvarez came on and did not interrupt. I talked longer than I meant to. I heard myself say, "He is my son," and the way the word son bent in my mouth made me sit down in the chair. "All right," she said when I ran out, calm, like a person reading the map even as the car skids. "Here's what we are going to do today. Photograph the bruise. You did? Good. Go to your doctor. Have it written down. Save every text. Do not meet him alone. If he calls, do not argue. Let it go to voicemail. We will make the first moves. I will call you back this afternoon." It was simple enough to hold in my head. I did not need to learn new words. I needed to do the next thing. I put my jacket on and went to the clinic. The nurse lifted my sleeve and made a small sound she tried to swallow. The doctor frowned in a way that meant he was seeing more than he said. He wrote it down. He asked if I felt safe at home. I said yes, because home is not a feeling you can take away with a paper. He handed me a copy of his notes. I folded it like it was valuable, because it suddenly was. Back at the table, the list had grown beside my coffee ring. Names, dates, check marks. I added a box for the doorbell footage. I added a box for the texts. I added a box for the clinic note. I drew a line around the recipe card and wrote Evelyn's 3 lines again under it in my own blocky hand like a student doing penmanship. The room stopped spinning. Third, a reason that would outlast me, not punishment. Direction. I pulled the fireproof box from the hall closet and set it on the table. The lid hesitated before it gave. Wills look official even when they are simple. Ours was simple. I set it beside Evelyn's recipe and thought of Mia reading my name when she is grown and wondering what kind of man wrote it. I took out the good stationery, the heavy paper Evelyn bought at a church fair and never used because she was saving it for something worth it. I dated the top. I wrote "Dear Mia" and then nothing for a full minute, because the first sentence of a thing is the weight-bearing wall. I told her what the house is. Not square footage, not comps. The smell of Sunday, the click in the stair that means morning, the spot near the lemon tree where we bury ring treasures and mark them with 2 stones. I wrote that loving someone is not the same as letting them do harm, even if they share your face. I wrote that keeping what is good is a kind of bravery you can practice. When my hand cramped, I flexed it and kept going. I wrote down the recipe for the roast on a separate page in ugly handwriting, because it matters more as a direction than as a taste. Roll the oranges first to loosen the rind. Salt the meat from up high. Always plant rosemary near a door. By sunset, the list had more check marks than blanks. The lemon tree outside shook a few bright drops onto the path like tiny coins. The house made the smaller sounds again, the ones you only hear when your heart calms enough to listen. I sat at the table and arranged the pieces like a man laying out tools before fixing a fence. I could see Evelyn standing in the doorway, that measuring look she had when the wobbly thing finally stopped wobbling. She never said "I told you so." She said, "There." One word with the weight of the whole day behind it. Now it is right. Not right yet, but headed there. I set my palm on the recipe card like a promise and felt something inside me click back into place. Tomorrow would be busy. Tonight, I would put the papers in a neat stack, wash the coffee cup, and lock the door. Practical things, the kind that keep a man from floating away. That night, Derek posted a photo of the Tesla with a caption about hustling for what you deserve. I saw it while the printer on my desk warmed up, a little orange glow in the corner of a dark room. The car's hood reflected the street lamp like a red pond. In the background, Paige smiled in a mirror with the keys held high. She had found her light. Of course she had. In the comments, someone asked what they had named the car. Paige replied, "Legacy." The word hit like a thumb to a bruise. Legacy. I pictured Evelyn's recipe cards, the lemon tree, the notch in the stair that sings at dawn. A car sheds value the moment it leaves the lot. Legacy, in my house, grows roots. I did not comment. I took a screenshot, labeled it with the date and time, and printed it. The page slid out warm, smelling faintly of ink and heated plastic. I wrote, "Name, Legacy. Same day as sale." It felt petty for half a second, then necessary. Ms. Alvarez moved faster than grief. Her morning call came before the second hand reached the 12. She spoke in steps I could follow. Judge, hold, order, like a nurse telling you where to put your feet. By noon the next day she had a judge on the phone. An ex parte order froze the transaction, barred any use of the funds, and authorized recovery of assets bought with them. The room felt different after that, as if fresh air had found a window I had forgotten. Then the emails started. The escrow officer suddenly remembered her ethics training. She wrote that she had concerns about the atmosphere during signing, that she had flagged the file after my shaking hands smeared ink across a page. I read the line twice. Part of me wanted to be angry she had not said anything yesterday. The bigger part wrote "good" in the margin and printed her message. Evidence is not a friend, it is a tool. The notary provided a statement. Derek had stood right behind me and told me where to initial, then snapped, "Old people take forever," when I asked to read the last page. That sentence lodged somewhere behind my ribs and pulsed. Old people take forever. I could hear his cadence in it, impatient, certain, bored with my need to understand what was happening to me. I underlined the phrase and slid the printout under the others, a stack building into shape. When the police came to take my statement about the shove, I caught my reflection in the window behind them, a man sitting straighter than he felt. The younger officer's eyes went to the bruise first. He did not disguise the wince. The older one took notes and asked if I felt safe. I said yes because the house was still mine, and because safety, like love, is sometimes a decision you make out loud before you can feel it. My phone buzzed on the table between their clipboards. Derek was tagged in a second photo, Paige lifting Mia into the Tesla's passenger seat with a caption, "Raising her in luxury like she deserves." Mia's legs hung straight as pencils, little feet not yet reaching the floor. The red door framed her like a mouth. My stomach turned. Luxury looks a lot like absence when you are 6 and buckled into a thing that costs more than the hands that hold you. I printed that one too. The printer hesitated, then obeyed. I wrote on the margin, "Mia in passenger seat." Caption luxury. I did not write what I wanted to. She deserves steadiness, not staging. After the officers left, I stacked everything on the table in a neat, ugly pile. Screenshots, statements, a doctor's note, Evelyn's recipe card on top like a compass. I called Miss Alvarez and asked her to request the hearing be public. She paused, only a breath, and said, "All right." "May I ask why, Mr. Hale?" "Because this kind of thing lives in the dark," I said. "Because my neighbors saw and should not be told they imagined it. Because one day Mia might read a transcript and know what the word legacy means in our family." Silence. Then the sound of a pen moving. "Understood," she said. "I will ask." I hung up and rested my palm on the recipe card. The house answered with its small sounds, the click in the stair, the hum in the vent, as if it approved of the order I was making. I thought of Derek's caption about hustle, of the way he exhaled after a win, of Paige catching herself smiling in reflective surfaces. I thought of Mia's bracelet, the sprig of rosemary tied near the blue bead, the little toy ring in her pocket waiting for a seed. I felt the old shame flicker and go out, replaced by something colder and steadier. Let them name a car legacy. I would show them what the word actually weighs. The moment of justice was close, and I would be there to redeem my mistakes and show my family what they deserved. On the day of court, I wore my wedding suit. It fit because grief takes and takes. Ruth sat behind me, a small general with a floral scarf. Hal clasped my shoulder. Ms. Alvarez laid out our exhibits like she was setting a table. The doorbell footage, the texts, the notary statement, the medical notes, the receipts from the dealership stamped, paid in full the same day escrow wired the money. Derek arrived in a tight blue suit, jaw set. Paige wore a white dress too new to wrinkle and a look that belonged on a brand, not a face. She laced her fingers through my son's and leaned in to whisper, "Hold your ground." I heard it. The room heard it. The judge's nameplate read Langston. Her eyes were clear enough to see through a man. Ms. Alvarez opened. "Your Honor, what we have here is the sale of a 71-year-old widower's home under duress, followed by the immediate purchase of a luxury vehicle by the man who applied that duress. We are asking the court to unwind the sale, restrain the defendants from further contact, and award fees. We will also be referring the matter for criminal review." Derek's attorney claimed I was volatile, that I had memory issues, that the sale had been voluntary for my own good. He sounded like a man explaining gravity to a bird. Ms. Alvarez walked him through the footage frame by frame until even his voice began to sound uncertain in his own ears. Then the judge asked to hear from me. I stood, and for the first time since Evelyn died, my voice did not tremble. "I built that house with my wife," I said. "We picked the paint by holding the chips against the afternoon light because she said colors tell the truth at 3 o'clock. We buried a pet under the lemon tree and planted rosemary for every grandchild born. My son told me to sell it for a car. He put his hand on me, and I signed because I'm not as strong as I was, until I remembered what I am. I am a husband still. I am a grandfather. And I am not merchandise Paige asked to speak. She said they were starting a family brand, that the Tesla was content, that I was stuck in the past, and that stability looks different now." Ms. Alvarez asked whether stability included the second set of keys to a house they had planned to rent out under an LLC. Derek formed the week before. Paige said that was entrepreneurship. The room went very quiet. Judge Langston leaned forward. "Mr. Hale, who is Mia?" "My granddaughter," I said. "Derek's daughter. She will know one day what this day means." The judge lifted the gavel, the old wooden thing that, in another life, would have been a carpenter's friend, and brought it down in a single clean strike. "The sale is rescinded," she said. "Title returns to Mr. Hale. Funds used for the vehicle are to be surrendered to the court within 10 days. A restraining order is granted. Costs and attorney fees are awarded to the plaintiff. This matter will be referred to the district attorney for review of elder abuse and assault." The gavel fell, and the sound traveled through me like a clean bolt of wood meeting a nail head. Solid, undeniable. The room shifted. Ms. Alvarez's hand found my elbow. Ruth let out the tiniest breath, the one you save for good news you were afraid to hope for. Hal's big palm landed once on my shoulder. A wordless "well done." Across the aisle, Derek's jaw moved like he was chewing a stone he could not swallow. Paige's practiced smile cracked at the edges, then reassembled itself for the hallway. I did not feel triumphant. I felt aligned, like a crooked frame finally squared. The sound of that hammer felt like Evelyn's hand finding mine in the dark. A week later, the tow truck came early, the kind of morning when the air smells like hose water and hot dust. I heard the hydraulic winch before I saw the red hood appear over their hedge. The straps went on with a workman's efficiency. Rubber against paint, click, pull, lift. Page filmed from the curb, voice pitched high for the lens. Words about injustice flung into a feed that suddenly asked questions she could not curate. Derek stood with his hands in his pockets, eyes sliding anywhere but the truck bed. Mia was not there. School had her, thank God. Without her, the street felt less like a stage and more like a spill finally being mopped. I watched from my porch with a mug of coffee cooling in my hands. No gloating, just the quiet relief of something large being taken away that never belonged here. The driver nodded at me when he caught my eye. Professional courtesy, nothing more, and drove off with the red promise strapped down, smaller than it had seemed under showroom lights. The car went to auction. I did not go. Ms. Alvarez called afterward in her plain, practical voice. The check cleared. The agreement stood. The proceeds would be placed in a trust in Mia's name for education and health care. She explained it without fanfare. School books, braces, eyeglasses, shots and checkups, counseling, if the world ever shook too hard. It was not punishment. It was repairs. Derek signed the papers with his eyes on the carpet. He did not get to touch a cent. He does not get to come within 100 yards of my property for 3 years. I measured 100 yards the old-fashioned way, step by step from my gate to the corner and back again, counting under my breath. I printed a little map for the fridge and another for Ruth. I showed Hal where the line fell on the sidewalk so if he ever saw Derek cross it, he would not have to guess. I changed the deadbolt. I moved the doorbell camera a fraction to the left to catch the whole porch. I programmed my phone to start recording with 2 taps. Practical things, small and steady. An email arrived with the trust documents. I printed them and slid the pages into a new folder I labeled in block letters. MIA, open at 18. There was a summary page I understood and a stack of pages I did not need to. I read the summary twice. Money that would not be used to polish an image but to sharpen a life. I put the folder in the fireproof box beside our marriage certificate and Evelyn's recipe cards. When I closed the lid, it thunked like something that could withstand heat and story. That night I changed my will at the kitchen table where the lemon tree's shadow cuts across at dusk. It was not complicated. I set out the old copy, a fresh pen, the blue painter's tape I use for everything, and the heavy paper Evelyn bought at a church fair. I took a single $1 from my wallet and folded it into a neat square, small, not bitter, but precise, and taped it to the page that names who gets what. Nothing goes to Derek or Paige beyond that $1. If they want it, they will have to tear the paper to reach for it. Let them feel the rip their choices made. The house and what is left of my money go to Mia, held in trust until she is old enough to tell a man's smile from a salesman's grin, to tell a woman's whisper of care from a script. I wrote a note to ride along with the will in words she might carry. Love slows you down to read the paper. A sales pitch asks for your pen. Love walks you through the house and points to memories. A sales pitch points to signatures. Love waits. A sales pitch hurries. I sealed the note and tucked it under the clip with the will, then added one more thing, a photocopy of Evelyn's rosemary rose card, grease spot and all, a recipe and a map. I sat there a while with my hands flat on the wood, feeling the grain, listening to the house hum its small approval. Outside, the lemon leaves shifted in the light wind, and the smell of rosemary came through the screen, clean, stubborn, right. I did not celebrate. I washed the mug, turned the deadbolt, and laid the tape roll back in the drawer where it lives. I set the folder for Mia atop the fireproof box so I would see it in the morning. I let myself think of Derek as a boy, then let the thought go because it did not help. The day had been about lines drawn and held. Tomorrow would be about keeping them. For now, I sat, and for the first time in weeks, the quiet felt like quiet again. On Sunday, I had everyone in the backyard by noon. I set out trowels, a bucket, and a pitcher. Ruth brought lemon bars and a wooden stake with the date written on it. Hal showed up with a shovel in his level. Ms. Alvarez came in jeans, carrying the new rosemary from the nursery. Mia ran in first, dropped her backpack on the chair like she lived here, which, in a way, she does. We planted fast and clean. Hal held the shrub straight. I loosened the roots. Mia packed soil with both hands, pressing down the edges like she was sealing an envelope. Ms. Alvarez poured water until the dirt settled. Ruth pushed in the dated stake and stepped back. "What is this for, Grandpa?" Mia asked. "For remembering," I said. "For knowing what to keep." We ate on the steps. Lemon bars, paper plates, tap water. I told them the practical parts. The sale is rescinded. The restraining order is in effect for 3 years. The car money is now in Mia's trust for school and health. The locks and codes have been changed. Ms. Alvarez said she would send a yearly checklist for the trust and the will, so I do not miss anything. Hal offered to look at the gutter elbows and the back gate hinge next weekend. Ruth said she will keep her phone on during Mia's visits, in case I ever need a quick second set of eyes. When they left, I rinsed tools, coiled the hose, and wrote a short note to Ms. Alvarez's office thanking her team. I put the planting date on the calendar and the restraining order expiration date on a sticky note inside a drawer, not to watch the clock, just so I have it right. I slid the updated will and the trust summary into the fireproof box with a simple label, "For Mia." Then I made a binder for the house. Roof report, appliance manuals, paint colors, copies of the property tax schedule. So if anything happens to me, someone can find what they need in one place. On Monday, I set a few alarms for taxes, the roof check, and spring battery changes. I put up motion lights and a camera on the back porch, gave Ruth and Hal spare keys, deleted Derek's gate code, and tested the 2-tap recording on my phone. I slipped Miss Alvarez's card, the case number, and my doctor's note into a clear sleeve by the door. Paige and I agreed on visits. Sunday afternoons, twice a month, curb drop-off, Derek not present. I will wait on the porch. No arguing over text, and I will save every message. I will not speak to Derek until the order ends. Anything necessary goes through lawyers. If he crosses the line, I call 911. If he ever wants a future with me, he starts with a written apology, a repayment plan, and proof he has worked on his temper. Any meeting will be in daylight, in public. The house is back to normal chores. Tuesday is trash. Thursday is laundry. I keep a small tray on the hall table for Mia's bracelet and the toy ring we use for our little treasure game. When she is here, she adds a bead or a button and hides it by the lemon tree. We mark the spot with 2 stones. Nothing mystical about it. It just helps her remember where things are. I put the wooden gavel on the mantel under our wedding photo. It reminds me of the day the judge set things right. That is enough. I do not need speeches or symbols. I need working locks, a clean yard, a clear plan, and people I can count on. I am keeping the house in good shape. I am keeping the paperwork straight. I am keeping Mia's path as steady as I can make it from here. The rest, Derek, time, whatever comes next, will take care of itself if I keep doing the simple things right. And I will. Would you have made the same call about family and legacy? Share your thoughts in the comment section.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.